watching SKST Radio.
Well, welcome to another episode of SKST Radio Podcast with Kami Grayson and friends. And today is no exception. I have a new special friend, Mr. Stu Shostak. Hey, Mr. Stu!
Hello, Kami. You got my last name pronounced correctly. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on the show. Oh, my gosh. I'm so honored to have you on the show. I am so honored. So
wow, you're the one.
Okay, so I saw the film. It was great. It was fantastic. And to follow your life and your career, it is so freaking cool.
Try living it.
So the thing that I'm so excited about is I'm on the smaller scale than you are. However, I've been making this show from 2009. I've been interviewing different celebrities that I've met down the pathway, singers, actors, movie stars, people that's actually starting off their business career. And so what you're doing is where I'm trying to get to.
Well, that's a pretty low bar. You should be able to do that quite easily.
So yeah,
a celebrity. I'm not sure about that. I've been on the air on the internet since 2006, and I'm still trying to get an audience too. It's a never-ending struggle, in a 5 zillion channel universe, to get people to like you and to come to you. And I do a very niche show. It's all about classic television. And that lets out about 80% of the country that's under 60 years old, like you. So I think you've got a better shot at this than I do after all this time.
Well, hey, you know what? You have just made my complete month. I'm not even say day. You have made my complete month. So I am so happy, so honored to have you on the show. Tell us about you and how you got started. I've seen the video. Let's talk about you first, then we'll go into the video. So that way people will get an idea.
About how I got started in the business, or how I got started doing the show, or what? Where do you want me to start?
Let's start in the business.
In the business, from the time I was a little kid, I loved television, and I come from a family that is so far away from show business, it's not funny. And when they saw me as a kid interested in the behind the scenes goings on at TV, they did their best to talk me out of it. My dad is still practicing law at 90 years old. He's a very successful customs attorney, and he tried to get me into that business. I was not interested in that at all. Well, let's see. When I got my driver's license at 16, I started going to television shows all over. I grew up in the LA area. So once I had my car, I could go to CBS and Metro Media and just started, the tickets were free. So I just started to go to every television show I could get into and just observed, just watched every aspect of it. And the easiest studio to get into at the time was Metro Media, Channel 11, which was on Sunset Boulevard. And they had 2 shows shooting there at the time, Truth or Consequences with Bob Barker. A lot of people don't know Bob Barker had another game show before The Price is Right.
Okay.
And then Concentration with Jack Nars. You didn't even need tickets for some of those shows. You could just walk right in. And so I'd go to school, and then when I get out of school, I'd get in my car, drive to Hollywood. While all my friends were into Alice Cooper and David Bowie, I was into Bob Barker and Jack Nars. So I would go to these shows, and they got to know me really well there from just being there. I was a nice looking kid. I wasn't a long-haired hippie boy. And at some point, the guy who gave out the tickets to fill the shows for the audiences needed an assistant, and I was just graduating from high school. This was June of 1974, and he offered me a job helping him fill the studio audiences. Okay. And so that's what I did. 2 years later, when Norman Lear's company, who at that time was producing All in the Family, Maude, Good Times, The Jeffersons, all of those shows, they ran out of space for them at CBS because CBS had Carol Burnett and Price is Right and Match Game and Tattletales and all of these other shows. He wanted to have all of his shows under one roof. So he didn't buy Metro Media, but he took over the whole facility, and all of those shows moved over to where we were giving out the tickets. And so I became the audience procurer for those shows. And that was like going from Walmart to Tiffany's, these, independently syndicated game shows to the top television shows on the air at the time. And that's what started my career. I kind of made inklings there that I wanted to do audience warm-ups. And, at first they said, yeah, kid, go peddle your tickets, The warm-up guy was late one morning at Different Strokes, and there was nobody to go on. And I had seen the show, and I'd been around there. So the line producer came up to me and said, well, you always wanted to do a warm-up, and none of us can do it. So just go out there and do it. And when the warm-up guy shows, just hand him the microphone. So because I was the audience procurer, the audience knew who I was because I was on the phone with them booking these bus groups and church groups and women's clubs and stuff. So when I went out there, it's like, oh, Stu is talking to us. Oh, this is great. So I got laughs in places I never even thought I'd get laughs. And the producers for the show are standing off to the side saying, who is this kid? He's getting great laughs. He's getting everybody all up and bubbly and everything. Little did they know that I cheated because I knew all these people.
Exactly.
That's what got me started into audience warm-ups. And then following season, they sold a show called Silver Spoons that starred Ricky Schroeder, but in his normal days before he went nuts politically. And so I started doing the warm-up on that, did that show for 2 years. And then, of course, you get noticed and word gets around. And I started to do other shows at other lots. And I did that job until my hair started to turn gray and white. And ageism problem in this business, as you know. And so that was my warm-up career. And at the same time, I ended up working for Lucille Ball. So I was doing really well in the 80s. The 80s was my favorite decade.
Oh, man, it was yours. You claimed it.
That's how I got into the business in a nutshell there without going into major details.
Wow. So, I have to ask, how was it working with Lucille Ball?
Oh, God. Again, being in the right place at the right time. In my last semester at Cal State Northridge, she taught a class there that I first wasn't going to take, and then I ended up taking it, and I was her star pupil because I was into television so much, and I was into her career, and I had watched her since I was 4 or 5 years old, like the rest of the world did. And so we just hit it off. And a couple of years after the class, I kept in touch with her during those 2 years. A couple of years later, the guy that was her publicist passed away, and he had been with her since she was married to Desi in the 50s. And one of his jobs was taking care of the film vault for them, all of their shows and camera negatives and all of that stuff that were stored in the middle of Hollywood there. And Lucy's husband, Gary, remembered me from the class and knew that I collected films and had an incredible archive of my own and was knowledgeable on this. And so they gave me that aspect of his job, which was maintaining their film library. And for me, that was a kid in a candy store. And I did that for Lucy for the last until she passed in 1989. But she had this reputation of being tough and a taskmaster and brutal on the set. And she was a businesswoman, and it was business as usual, but she also had a heart of gold. Every year I got a birthday present from her. Every year I got a Christmas present from her.
Wow.
Even though she was tough on the set, she was very motherly and very caring and very warm and wonderful. And she was great. She was absolutely great. I treasure those years that I worked for her and her husband, Gary Morton. She was wonderful.
That is so cool. When I was growing up, not growing up, I was married by then. But anyway, I read her life story.
When you're married, it's a never-ending battle there.
So I read her life story, and I was pregnant at the time, and I had not decided what we were going to do with the name. I just couldn't figure out.
I thought you were going to say we didn't know what we were going to do with the baby. That's a whole nother thing.
No, the name, the actual name.
Okay.
So after reading her story, it inspired me. So I actually named my daughter. We didn't know what it was going to be at the time. So if it was a boy, we would name it after him. And if it was a girl, we name it after me. And so I actually named my daughter after me. And that's not ever done for women, And so I did that.
So how old is Kami Jr. now?
She is 30 years old.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Time just flies, doesn't it?
Yep, it does. It does. So,
My goodness. Wow.
And so it's amazing that, what little nuggets you can get from someone, and I was young.
Lucy touches everybody in one way or another. And she's universal love there. Universal love.
Yes, she is. Yes, she was. So tell me about your wife. How did you get started? Come on. I seen the film, but tell people, how did you meet your wife?
After Lucy passed away, the other gentleman who took over for Howard McClay was the person who passed on, who was her publicist. And I took over the film library end of it. And a gentleman named Tom Watson took over the publicity side. So in the 80s, we both went to work for her on her then new series, Life with Lucy. And that didn't last long. And I won't go into the reasons why. We could dissect that for hours. But wonderful thing about Lucy, Tom had been director of research at CBS for many, many years. He gave up that job to become her publicist. And once the show was canceled after 13 weeks, we were all out of work. I mean, I had my video business and I was still doing audience warm-ups. So I still had an income, but he gave up his pension and everything at CBS, and she kept him on. She kept him on until the day she died, which was really nice because they didn't need a full-time publicist, but they felt so bad that he had left his career at CBS. And again, goes back to the type of person she was. You see how generous and warm and great she was. Anyway, after she had passed, they were having Star Trek conventions as early as the 80s. And we just got this crazy idea to do, maybe since people are putting on the Spock ears and going to these Star Trek conventions, maybe they would come to Lucy conventions. We didn't want them necessarily to dress up like her with the red hair and all that, especially the guys. We didn't want that. They did anyway.
They could dress up like Ricky.
Yeah, some of them did. All right. But anyway, we just had this idea. Tom, God love him, put a lot of his own money into this thing, and it was a hit. We ended up doing 6 of them from 1996 to 2001. Wow. And one of the people that always went to the conventions and always sent her money in right away was my future wife, Janine Kaysen. I didn't know her at the time. I was married to somebody else and had my own daughter at the time. And so we did all 6 of these conventions without me knowing her. She knew me because I was hosting game shows at these conventions. I was hosting panel discussions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So she knew me. I didn't know her. Now you fast forward to what we talked about at the beginning of the show. 2006, when I started my audio version of Stu's Show, I had a lot of Lucy guest actors and people behind the scenes on my show. I had Shirley Mitchell and Doris Singleton. I had Keith Thibodeau, who played Little Ricky. And I also had cast members from her later series, like Jimmy Garrett, who played her son in the 60s. Larry Anderson, who played her son-in-law in the series that I worked in. All of these people that had worked on the show, the Lucy fan club out of Jamestown, New York, sent an email to everybody saying, hey, there's this guy, Stu Shostak. He's doing this show, Saluting Classic TV, and he has a lot of Lucy people on. So Janine was on that list. And she started listening to my show. And I forgot who it was that we had on the show. She called in to talk to whoever it was. It may have been Alan Young and Connie Hines from Mr. Ed. I don't think there was a Lucy connection there yet, but I think, and then her voice was just like incredible. And I had gone through a divorce and I was perfectly happy being a single parent, raising my daughter. I wasn't looking for anything, but I just fell in love with his voice. And I emailed her after the show and I said, can I have your number? I want to call you. And she thought I was some kind of like some big fancy celebrity. And she goes, oh, wow, he wants my number. So I called her and we talked for 4 hours on the phone. Wow. And I was in love again, reluctant.
Immediate connection.
Yeah. But the thing was, she lived in Northern California. I lived in Southern California. And I had been screwed by women, and not literally, but in the other sense, many times over before my divorce and after my divorce. And I wasn't looking for it. So I'm thinking, okay, well, she's got a nice voice, but if she really wants to make this thing click, let her come down here on her own dime and let her romance me for a well, she did. She came down on her own dime, and Kami, it was love at first sight. We just hit it off. And it was the best relationship I had ever had. And I had so many relationships where I just fell head over heels over these other women. And it was the F word back to me. We're just friends, just friends. And for once now, this person loved me back the way I loved her. And it was simpatico. For almost 7 years, we were inseparable. We were like 2 peas in a pod. I couldn't believe it. I was 51 years old when I met her. Took that long to find the right person. And then she has this brain aneurysm. Wow. And I almost lost her. And I was determined, for once I finally found somebody who I'm compatible with, and you're not taking her away from me.
That's right.
That's when I learned how screwed up our healthcare system is in this country. So,
wow.
And
Yeah.
then they can see the film and they can see the battles and everything I had there. But the thing is, everybody's saying, oh, you're a hero and you saved your wife's life and blah, blah, blah. When you care about somebody and you love them enough, you just go into that mode. You just go into that, it's like second nature. You just do it because you need to do it.
Right.
And that's how I felt. And then later I find out from her neuropsychiatrist while we're in recovery, she's saying, well, 50% of the spouses or significant others that go through a medical crisis like this with their loved one, whether it's a stroke or a brain aneurysm, there is a difference, or cancer or something horrible, 50% of the people of their significant others can't handle it. And they walk away. They walk away and make the other person's family deal with all that. That never entered my mind. And the neuropsychiatrist said to me, not only did that not enter your mind, but you went and married her to take care of her because we had to get blood relatives to okay all the surgeries. They wouldn't, I would say, do it. And they'd say, you are? Well, I'm her boyfriend. No, we need a blood relative. And it's like climbing the walls. So when she came out of the coma, I proposed marriage to her. So that we could get her well. I mean, I loved her and everything, but being her husband
to make those decisions
made it so much easier because, they'd say, okay, she needs another surgery on her eye. Okay, do it. And you are? I'm her husband. Bingo. End of discussion. End of everything. Surgery got done. So, and that's how we got her well. That's one of the ways I learned how to play the system, how to get through the healthcare system, besides having to get tough and angry. And I mean, you saw the film. And you see, I'm not exactly a quiet, shy person. So they got afraid of me a lot. And it was good. I really felt like I was in control and power. But it's the bureaucracy of the insurance companies that don't want to pay for the stuff. And just the hospitals, it wasn't so much the hospitals as it was the rehab facilities. They're over-patiented and understaffed, and they don't care. They're programmed, and it's not to say that they're immune to it, but they're programmed to do a certain thing a certain way, and they see this day in and day out. They see death, they see misery, they see pain, they see suffering. So they're not immune to it, but it's part of their job. And if you don't take a stand and tell them, hey, you've got to get this person better, they're not. And there's a lot of incompetencies, as there is in any job, in any business. You're going to have good and bad people, and there are wonderful people in the medical industry. You just have to cut through the crap to get to them sometimes. And that's why I made the film. I didn't make the film to show off my relationship with Lucille Ball. I didn't make the film to plug my show. I made the film to show the general public who doesn't know me from a hole in the ground that if you know how to work the system and you get aggressive and angry enough, you can emerge victoriously dealing with the healthcare industry. That's why I made the film.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's the way to do it. I mean, this was what you had to deal with. So now you're able to put it out the way you know how to put it out. So that is wonderful. That is absolutely wonderful. I mean, that was just a heartfelt moment, just watching the film and all the things that you had to go through and endure. And so I commend you for that. I really do. And I know your wife loves you to death. I mean,
yes, a little bit more than usual. It's still a clean freak. She still drives me crazy, but I love her and I'm going to take care of her the rest of our lives. I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. But just in case any of your viewers or listeners out there, I have officially retired from the health advocacy industry. I am not. I'm lucky I'm alive after what I had to get through.
Well, listen, I've noticed that you were good friends with Tony Dow.
Yeah. Yes.
Tell me about him.
He's a great guy. What you saw in Leave It to Beaver is what he is. He is everybody's older brother. He is a wonderful, warm, terrific guy. He and his wife Lauren were over to the hospital. I can't tell you how many times. They were one of the few I let in before we knew that she was going to survive. That's how much I trusted them. And he's going through a rough time right now with his diagnosis. But I'm hoping that he's getting the treatment he needs. And I'm hoping that, they caught this thing in time so that he can have a prolonged life and, we'll have him to enjoy, for a long, long time to come. He's a wonderful guy. And life is not fair a lot. He does not deserve what he's going through right now. Sweetest, kindest, most wonderful person in the world.
And I sort of figured that. That's the reason why I asked, because I did read that recently, what he was going through, him and his family. So that's the reason why I wanted to mention him and just say we're praying for him on this end as well.
Thank
So
you.
tell us about the film and how people can see the film.
Okay. Well, right now the film has been out for 10 days. It was an instant hit the day it came out. I'm so happy for the producer and the director, Mallory Kennedy, and CJ Wallis, the director. It rose to number 12 on day one on iTunes most requested feature show. I know. Yes, absolutely. And so iTunes has it right now. YouTube has it. Vudu, VUDU, and DirecTV and Dish Network both have it. You can go to the on-demand areas of the cable companies, Xfinity, Spectrum, and just search Stu's Show, and it should come up. And everybody's got it right now except Amazon and Netflix. And Amazon has it. They just haven't made it public yet. And there's plenty of other places to see it, and just go to one of the other places. And they have a 90-day window on it, so you have until the first week in August, and then hopefully we'll get it onto Netflix. But that's up to CJ and the film's distributor. But we're very, very pleased with the response we're getting. I can't believe the reviews that we've gotten. They're just like you. They're just through the roof. Because I was very nervous about telling the world our story and whether or not people would even like me, because I'm loud and brash and obnoxious. and I don't like the sound of that laugh, Kami, but I will accept it. But it turns out that most of the reviewers are saying Stu is loud and he's brash and he's obnoxious, but he's likable. So that's okay. But he's likable, I will accept. And so, and I told CJ when we were making this thing, I said, there's way too much of me. I saw a rough cut and there was like 30 minutes, but as you know, before Janine even comes into the film. And he said, we have to do this because most people don't know who you are. And unless we establish the fact that you had this warm relationship with Lucy and you're this, loud, but lovable kind of obnoxious guy, they won't be rooting for you in this second half of the film. And he was right. Because I told you before we went on the air, I'm getting friends requests just from women. And it's like women my age. It's like, you saved your wife's life. Oh, you're a hero, blah, blah, blah. It's like, where were you 40 years ago when I was single? Why are you all coming at me now? I've been married for 8 years, been together with Janine for 15. But again, it's like I told you, you just go into that mode. When you care enough about somebody, you don't think it's just second nature. You just go into that mode. So anyway. There you are.
Well, I'm telling you, I love it. I love the fact that the archives. I mean, was that your study? That room is full of videos, and I'm like, oh my God.
There's two rooms. This is the studio part of my office. I have a big room here, and the other side over there is my office. I have another computer, and I have a bookshelf and all that stuff. But then behind us here, over here, are the archives. And I've got 1,500 reels of classic TV on 16mm film. I've got my 8mm collection from when I was a kid. I collected stuff. And then I've got probably 1,100 videotapes that I recorded off the air when VCRs first came out in the late 70s. So yeah, they're all back there. They're all in a climate controlled, insured part of the house here. So it's all protected. Yeah, people come over here and they're like, oh my God. And it takes them a little bit to get used to it. But so how many people, have a TV studio in their house and an archive facility? So
right. So do you get offers?
Right. Excuse me?
Do you get offers? Do you get people who want to purchase those things from you?
Well, I had a mail order video business of the stuff that's legally okay to sell, what's called public domain. For years and years and years, I started selling them on beta and VHS back in the late 70s and early 80s. And then I started DVD sales in the early 2000s. But there's a little thing out there now called streaming and YouTube. And it's kind of like taking all of my stuff and put it up there. So that people don't have to pay for it anymore. And of course, I don't get a dime for it. But that's a whole nother show we could do, Kami.
Yeah, we need to do that one.
Let's just say that my show is my main source of income right now. I'm semi-retired too. We moved out of LA after thousands of years, and we're up in the mountains now, and we love it up here. And I'm still doing my show every other week. And surprisingly, people don't mind the drive to come up here and get out of town for a day and sit and chat with me. So I'm perfectly happy doing what I'm still doing transfer work for clients too. I transfer film and videotapes to digital. So I still have that through Shokas Video. So
what's next for you, Stu?
Well, as soon as we get off the air, I'm going to take a nap. No, I'm going to keep the show going as long as it's fun, and it is fun. And like I said, I'm still doing video transfer work and editing for clients. And I'm going to sit back and see what happens to this film and how long this 15 minutes of fame is going to last for me. I think we're about in the last 3 minutes of it now. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Well, and the last question is words of wisdom. What kind of wisdom can you give to a person like me who wants to be like you?
Think about something else. No, yeah. I guess perseverance. Keep at it. Don't get discouraged with your audience. Are you talking about in terms of the show or in terms of being a film preservationist and television historian?
The show.
The show. Okay, then I was right on the right track there. Just persevere. Get the word out. Advertise. Get onto social media. Tell people you're out there. Tell them who some of your guests were, and just try to attract eyeballs. And the people that are genuinely interested in what you're doing will stick with you. That's how it was for me. And it's a big universe out there. So don't get discouraged when you see low numbers. It doesn't mean that people aren't watching. It just means that you've got an untapped audience out there that you need to get to. How's that?
Wonderful. I love it. Absolutely love it. Stu, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate your time. And I hope we get to talk again.
Absolutely. If you want to do a show on classic TV or something or a specific show, just let me know. I'm here for you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited.
Oh, I'm glad I made a girl excited, ladies and gentlemen.
You did, all the way in Virginia Beach.
Kami excited.
So thank you, Stu. Thank you so
It's
much.
great to meet you and to talk to you.
I will send this video to you. We will get everything posted as soon as possible, and we will share, like, subscribe, and just get everybody out there so they can see the film.
Great. And if you're on Facebook, friend me. I'm Stu.Shostak. You'll see me there.
I will do it. Okay, guys, until next week. Thank you, Stu. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
You're watching SKST Radio.